Hi, Schnitzelkoffs. We got a real treat for you today. Today, I interviewed Derek Ritchie, a big legend in the independent U.S. soccer media circles. We talk rumors and some insider info. We talk the roster. We talk the World Cup. We talk U.S. soccer in general. Sit down, relax, sit back, sit down. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this following interview with Derek Ritchie. Thanks. All right, I love Schnitzelkoffs. How you doing? I'm here with honorary Schnitzelkopf. You called yourself a Jagdwurst on the text train.
I
On the
did.
little text train. I was so impressed. I was like, "Oh, we got ourselves a German."
Yeah.
But we got Derek Ritchie here, host of the Straight Red Card podcast, which is a huge following online. You've been running some sort of you've been running that for years now, haven't you? You've had some sort of a fan, sort of.
Yeah, I mean it's an odd story. We started doing this back in 2007.
The early
and,
aughts.
and yeah, and then we had our own little like YouTube thing we were doing, and then Big Soccer picked us up and said, "We want you to be our official, Big Soccer vidcast," is what we called it at the time, because it wasn't live; it was recorded. And so we did all those shows with Jimmy Conrad and John O'Brien and half of the old, you name it. Joe Max Moore was on our show. We had Tony Miola. We had all the big boys on our show.
Nice.
And then somewhere around 2011, right after Indy 11 was announced, because Brett and I were the president and the vice president of the Brickyard Battalion. And we had been working with the Indy folks to start that team. And so we had done that for about 4 or 5 years. And then Brett had a kid. And then I was going through a divorce and I had kids too. And I was on 3 boards. And like at some point, something has to give. And
Sure.
I fucking resigned.
Sure.
And so did our show. We're like, let's take a break. We thought it'd be like a year break or 2 break. No. We came back during the pandemic. We're watching Pete. I was already kind of previously talking to Pete and friends with Pete. And then Pete's show was going on and it was doing really well. And I thought we can bring a different angle to this. Pete does a good job at what Pete does. And so does Tact, and so does Sam, and so do you. And so do, and I thought, but we bring a different angle. So let's get back in this thing and we can curse now. So let's do it.
Fuck yeah. Thanks for that reference. I think we're still babies in the American independent media scene, but there is a big scene. The attack manager, he's got ridiculous amounts of followers.
He does.
And Pete, he does his channel is called, remind the viewers what the channel is called.
Pete is 11 Yanks.
It's the 11 Yanks, right? And he just had Alexi Lala's on his podcast too.
No, that was Sam.
Sam.
That's the Yank Report. He had Alexi on. I don't think Alexi would go on Pete's show, and I don't think he would go on Tac's show, but he'll go on Sam's show, and Sam knows how to kind of carve that path down the middle. Now, we've had Jimmy on our show, Jimmy Conrad.
Right.
I mean, we had some, but I don't think Loss will come on our show either. I mean, there are certain like guys who can handle us and some guys that maybe just don't want to handle us and think we're idiots. And that's fine too. We can live with that.
Right.
We can live with that. Yeah.
Well, you were also recently on Max Bredos's podcast, right?
Yeah, that was about, I think, 6 months ago. So
what is time?
Yeah. I mean, Max was on our show on Big Soccer.
Right.
Eons ago.
Right.
And so we invited him back. And so we had him on. And then less than 2 weeks later, I was on his show. We're friends. And so we disagree. And the great thing about Max is like, it's okay to disagree with them. Like we have a great back and forth, and we agree on a lot of stuff. We disagree, but it's a cool conversation. And that's how conversation should be
100%.
In the soccer sphere. Yeah, it really 100%. Should be that way.
2 quick things. One, we should probably tell the listeners, because a lot of new listeners in the U.S. soccer scene, what Big Soccer was. Now, we talked about this before. I was a Big Soccer member back in the day. Big Soccer this would have been, I joined, I think, in 2002 or something. Yeah. I don't know, when did they start? Late 90s, early aughts, Oliver Say started?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah,
somewhere around 90s. There. it was a big internet forum. This is pre-Reddit. There's no social media at the time. You go online, you go to forums. And bigsoccer.com was the soccer headquarters.
It was
for fans to get together and talk. And it was so powerful that you'd be part of these MLS discussions online. And like 6 months would go by and MLS would announce changes that seemed awfully reminiscent of the stuff fans were talking about on Big Soccer. Maybe it's just me. There's also rumors of like, I think there's a story of in 2002 in Korea, Bruce Arena killed some time in the hotel and someone looked over his shoulder and Bruce Arena was perusing the Big Soccer boards.
Yes.
Like everyone was there. The great Peter Wilt, former Chicago GM. I remember he would have a Q&A session every week. And fans could just say, "Hey, Peter, what's going on with X, Y, and Z?" And I remember being like, "Oh, we're looking at some kid in Russia right now. We're looking at a kid in Bulgaria right now, and blah blah blah." It was just so accessible, and it was such sort of the playground for American soccer fans and global soccer fans. And they had something called Big Soccer Radio, and Big Soccer Media, which we had shows like it was the main one, the World Soccer Daily, or what was World Football Daily. It changed the same few times. Then there was, I think, an American show with Lou Llewellyn and Dan Loney. I used to listen to all the time.
Dan still, I remember Dan really well.
Remember Nick Webster had his show.
Nick's,
right?
Yep.
Who's I think a soccer coach in California somewhere now, I think. Or
yep.
Like
Dan Loney was on our show at least a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan Loney.
Great old days, man.
The old days. I was there. I remember this. And it's just so funny that it was such, that was just such a booming period of American soccer fandom. And for a lot of new fans, we are the old fans that predate all that. We're like the big soccer generation.
We are, really. Yeah. And like Bill Archer, class act, we had him back on our show just when we were launching this again a couple of years ago. We're going to have him back in his old crabby ass. What a great guy.
Hot takes, Bill. Yeah. He got on me a couple times.
But it was a great time to be alive. I mean, even then though, there were hints and notes that there's only so far you could go. I mean, there were articles I wrote for Big Soccer that had to be pulled. That's just a fact. So even back then, when it seemed like Peter Wilt, who's we obviously started Indy 11 with, and I know him very well. There are just limitations. Peter was one of the few guys that would be that open on Big Soccer as far as the guy running an actual MLS team.
Right.
But now and then, one thing is true. There were things you couldn't say. And that's unfortunate. And now I don't have those. I don't even have any handcuffs. Brett and I just say whatever the hell we want and to hell with it, But back then we had to be a little cautious. We knew people were watching, and even when I wrote articles for Big Soccer, I knew there were things I couldn't say. And that became pretty obvious during the Sasha Kleshin article I wrote. But I don't have to retread that. It's just, it didn't work out real well. I interviewed Sasha's dad, and he said a whole lot of crap about Preki, which I wrote in the article and quoted him. And I even called him before I released it and said, "Are you sure you want these quotes in here? This is what you said, but I'm sending to you. Here, review this. Are you okay with that?" He said, "Yes, publish it. He's a fucking prick. I hate his guts. He's the biggest piece of Preki's the biggest piece of shit since the dog was let out and shit in the yard." And then I posted the next day, and he calls me late in the day and says, "Can you please take that down?" Because Preki had become an assistant coach for U.S. Soccer at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" He's like, "I got a call, and if you don't take that down, my son will never play for the U.S. men's national team again." I said, "Okay, I'll take it down, dude. Don't worry about it." And I did. I took it down.
Well, it's funny. It's like the modern day of like, who was it? Matthew Hoppy's uncle or Christian Pulisic's dad or something liking a tweet. That's like the modern day version of that. If there's a tweet where like Graham Potter doesn't give Pulisic enough minutes, then Christian Pulisic likes the tweet or something. That becomes this whole media storm. Like, "You see Pulisic like the tweet. What do you think about him?" It's like we're all adults, but we're all in high school, man. It's just much he said, she said, oh, that Precky's a dick, bah, bah, bah. And then Precky went off and went missing for a year. Who knows?
But Precky is a dick, by the way. I can confirm that. But great player, just a fucking shit person.
Yeah, amazing player.
I mean, you can quote me on that one if you want to.
I will, because independent media, no one's going to call me. I'm not going to, we're no holds barred here. That's what's great about the modern day of YouTube.
Exactly.
It's just like, it's whoever wants to find your audience. You have to say what you want to say. And, you know, it's the same party.
Yes, exactly.
We don't have major sponsors telling us what to say and what not to say.
By the way, Matthew Hoppy's uncle is a great guy. That's
I'm sure he is. And he's always fighting for his son on social media. His nephew on social media.
His nephew, yes. Hey, Matthew played 15 minutes today.
Oh, did he? How'd he do? Free the Hoppy.
You know what? I didn't get to watch it because even though ESPN Plus covers championship soccer, guess what? They don't. They hardly ever play the games that Norwich played. It was Norwich versus Middlesbrough today.
Oh,
and so
cover it.
I'm going to have to catch up on it. I don't know where I'm going to find it, but I'm going to watch it because Sargent scored and apparently came off with a mild ankle. Thingy. So I hope that's not serious because he scored. They rammed his ankle. This is what Brett told me through the texts. And I'm like, are you serious? He's injured. And then Brett told me, I don't think it's that serious. And then apparently the manager said it's not that bad. He should be fine for the World Cup. But I don't want to hear any of that this close to the World Cup, frankly. I just don't want to hear it.
No, and as a U.S. soccer fan, you think this weekend, we've been saying the bad things. We've all been saying, it's like, hey, all our core players are healthy. How about that? It's like, don't say that out loud. There's still one match day left.
Yep.
Stay quiet. So
who said that today? I heard the same thing. Who was that? Who was that guy who said that? All our core guys are healthy. I wanted a pox on his house.
I've heard that a couple times. So I think I heard it on all the pundits are saying it. And it's like, don't say it.
Don't even say it. Yeah.
Don't even say it.
Just go around knocking on wood everywhere you go.
Knock on wood, knock on wood. You know, we're a baseball nation. We should know better.
No shit.
But let's hope it's nothing serious.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I hope it's not.
The two boys in Bundesliga yesterday played each other, Scally and Reina, and they both were healthy, hopped on the plane right after the game and went to Qatar. So they're good. Yes. Now we got to keep an eye on
They yanked Reina pretty early in that one. I think that was part of the plan. And you know, I think he's just such a key player for us. God help us if he's injured. I mean, people are going to say, well, you still got Weah. Okay, but you know, Weah is back from injury and hasn't really played that much. Reina's played a lot more than Weah has. And so that made me a little nervous. Although I'm fine with Weah on the right wing. Absolutely fine.
Weah, when he puts on a U.S. jersey, he's been a real warrior for us, hasn't he? And it's hard for me to want to bench him because Brendan Aronson's in great form and Gio Reyna just has no ceiling to his game. But it's just like Weah has been the best in the jersey, if you ask me.
I'd agree. So far,
he's also.
But I also think that Reyna hasn't had a chance because of all the injuries. So, but it really depends on how we're going to play, right, Stefan? It's like, are we going to play tucked in from the wings? Or are we going to play wide? And Weah provided the width. And if you're playing Reyna out there, he's not going to give you that width. He's going to be cutting in too, along with Pulisic. And then you better hope Jedi's healthy and to provide some width. And on the other side, you're hoping Dest is at least, you know, I don't know, halfway there. And can not only provide offense, but some defense too.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of nerves going into this, honestly, but you know, it's going to be about how Berhalter decides to play. Is it going to be really pragmatic, or is he just going to do what he's been doing?
Right.
Which is hard to tell sometimes what that is, but I'll let you lead this conversation on that.
Yeah. I want to talk about all this. Let's do a quick roster moment. Let's talk about roster real quick.
All right.
And then let's talk. There's a World Cup preview. Let's do roster. Let's talk how we're feeling about strategy, and then maybe some predictions. Now we're feeling about Wales, England, and Iran specifically. Cool?
All right. Sounds great.
That way. So let's start with the roster. A couple, I'd say 2 big surprises and maybe 2 or 3 small surprises. How are you feeling about the roster? Let's start with the goalkeepers.
Well, being that I'd been saying Stefan doesn't really deserve to be over Horvath in this lineup, and the fact that maybe, I don't know if Greg listened. I know he didn't. I mean, I'm just joking around there, but
he did.
I mean, I was saying for a couple weeks, Stefan's not earning it. He's not earning it. Horvath's doing better than Stefan in the championship.
Yep.
And we knew Johnson was a lock, but here's the real thing that happened, Stefan. From what I know. It's from guys that I know that are reliable. They don't bullshit me because I'm rarely wrong, and I'm not going to say it. And I was going to save this for the show with Brett and I, but I'm going to give it to you here. Yeah. So Greg got on the phone with Stefan, with Zach, and he said, listen, you can be on this World Cup team, but you're going to be a number 2. And Stefan blew up. Really? Stefan got pissed. Yeah. He said, I did everything you told me to do. And now you're going to tell me I'm the number 2. And so that conversation didn't end well. He interviewed Johnson. He did Horvath. And then he came back to Stefan the day after and said, listen, I've talked to everybody, and we need to have a clear hierarchy. He said on his on ESPN, he said hierarchy. It's hierarchy.
He'll figure it out.
There's a very, very definitive word that when he uses his words very carefully, right. Berhalter. He said hierarchy. He meant hierarchy during the ESPN grand release thing. But now the stories that I'm hearing about the talk with Stefan makes sense, because you don't need an upset, grumpy, old, pissed off goalkeeper playing as your number 2. You need a guy who's there to accept his role as a number 2. And he just basically said, I mean, the guy blew up on me on Zoom. I'm done. I'm going with Horvath and Johnson behind him, behind Turner.
So on the U.S. Soccer YouTube, are they going to release that video of him calling Zach Stefan? Because that's what I want to see.
That's what I told Brett. I want to see all the videos where he called the guys and said, "You're not coming, bitch."
Yeah, that's drama. I want to see the Ricardo Pepi video.
That's what I want to see, because I want to see Pepe's fucking jaw hit the floor when he finds out Ferreira's making it. Because remember, he was very clear,
right?
Greg, about the fact that it was a comparison between he and Pepe and Ferreira.
Right.
It's like, what?
Which is bonkers, right?
Because it's crazy.
Ferreira's an 11 and Pepe's a 9. So I don't understand what the difference is.
I mean, Ferreira's a 10 at best, or a false 9 at best. Well, Pepe's a real 9. Right. It's just crazy to me. It's just crazy. That conversation must have gone off over a lead balloon. It really must have.
The other thing is he picked Sargent over Pepe because Sargent's in England. And I think Grant Wall brought this up. He's just like, well, why didn't they tell them Pepe should have gone to England for a loan? He went to Holland. Like, he probably had options to go to England too. If he knew that was a factor, he could have gone to the championship instead, as opposed to going to Groningen.
I would say this about again, this is inside baseball shit, but what happened with Pepe's agent was, I mean, Augsburg had every intention of him playing 10 to 5 to 10 minutes to 15 minutes here and there for the rest of the season. They were not ready to give up on him. And from on top, they still wanted to play him. But his agent and Pepe got together and after a meeting with Greg and said, fuck, we got to get out of this. We can't be playing 10, 15 minutes. We're not going to make the World Cup. We got to get a loan. And it was pretty last second, unfortunately, if you remember, during the transfer market.
Yeah.
And he got that loan pretty late in the game to go to Groningen. And it looked like it worked.
Right.
Because he was scoring goals and he was doing great. But I guess not. I guess it didn't work, which I mean, it's one of those magical things. It's like, how amazing has Ferreira been for Greg in practice and in games that you just discard Pepe?
Yeah.
To me, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. He's not even a real 9, but I guess he gives you a different profile, as we've been talking about. Player profile.
It plays the system. His profile fits the system. Right.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
So you're feeling a little, you're a peppy over. I mean, the biggest surprise on this roster was Haji Wright, right up top, I would say, because he wasn't anybody's lists. And
Yep.
Greg Berhalter brought him in once over the summer, didn't like him, or ripped him apart after the game, being like he did not see, it's like we wanted better from him, and let him go off and didn't call him in again. Now all of a sudden he's on the roster over Pepe, over Jordan Peacock, who I knew he was never going to call him Peacock. This doesn't like him. But like, and then part of me wants to think he did, part of me thinks he did like an FU to everybody. He's like, oh yeah, you roster leaks. Like, check this out. Haji Wright's in my squad. How about that? How about that, you guys?
That leak did come out the day before, believe it or not.
The Haji Wright one?
In some circles. Yeah. And some of us were like, nah, oh, come on. All the other ones are, I think we're going to be right. We knew Stefan. Right. We knew the Stefan one, and we knew that to be true. That was confirmed by multiple sources. And in the inside game, inside baseball game. And then, but that one seemed a little fishy. It did. It really did. But then we started thinking about it, and we started thinking about, a lot of us did, about the Players Council. And we started thinking about how much the players love Haji Wright. Think about all the guys that grew up playing with him. Pulisic, for one, Adams, McKennie. Like this guy's really got the inside track with the team. And Greg listens to that Players Council a lot. And I think that may have made a difference. The other difference for PFOC, honestly, is his English is shit.
Right.
And he hasn't really connected with the other guys on that team. He hasn't really had a long enough chance to like make friendships, bond, connect, be a part of the heart of that team. And you know what? I should be Greg's fucking, I should be advising him, because that's a reasonable reason to explain why you pick Wright over PFOC.
I agree.
It's the connection. The players feel connected with Haji Wright. They don't know PFOC from a hole in the wall yet. So,
and PFOC doesn't speak English, so it's hard to connect. 100%. Yeah, I think in the soccer supporter sphere, we're hearing this term called vibes roster. It's a vibes roster, right? And the one thing Greg has done very, very well, I think, in his tenure is he maintains a very healthy locker room. I think they get along pretty well. They got pretty good support system amongst each other, and it seems like this roster was leading into that. Like you said, leaving Stefan off is one of the grump there. They don't really know Jordan Peacock. They knew Haji growing up. It sort of leaves that environment where they know each other. That doesn't explain excluding Pepe, though, because Pepe's also part of the crew.
He is. You're right. You're right.
But overall, it's also partly my theory as to why he didn't want John Brooks involved, because John Brooks was locker room poison a little bit, probably.
Give me to John Brooks. I've gotten in so much trouble.
What'd you say? You got in trouble with what?
I got in so much trouble over the last 6 months, 8 months, year and a half about John Brooks. Listen, I had a really good discussion with a reporter, Meg Swanwick.
I love Meg Swanwick. Yeah.
And so did Sam. The real fact of the matter is, very early in qualifying, Greg and John Brooks butted heads. And whenever Brooks didn't start necessarily, that was a problem with Brooks, and Greg didn't like that. He wasn't a locker room guy. And then when he finally yanked Brooks in Honduras, after a shitty first half, it wasn't all his fault by any means.
Right.
Brooks threw a fucking cow about it, and that was the end of it. And then instead of just owning up to the fact that there was kind of a locker room, I don't know what you want to call it, chafing.
Sure. Chafing. There's no gold bomb. There's no gold bombs in that locker room.
There's not enough KY going on in the locker room. All right. I mean, instead of just saying, listen, right now, Brooks isn't really fitting in with what, the team chemistry right now. But no, we had to go on this fucking bullshit trip about
Right.
he can't play a high line and he can't do this and he can't do this. It's just bullshit. That was all a lie the whole time. And all of us knew it a year and a half ago. And then we've been saying it, although even Meg just hinted at it. She wouldn't say it all. She would say this and she wink, wink. And then you'd be like, oh, I got to take some. Oh, you winked. Oh, you winked. So, but I didn't want to get Meg canceled from, her reporting, and I didn't want her to get canceled from the interviews with Greg.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know.
It's also on them to share. John Brooks is allowed to share. I don't know why he's not speaking up. But
I don't know. At this point, I don't know why he's not saying anything. It's crazy.
And like I said, I think sharing a little bit more like that would lead into Greg's cause. But similar with the Weston McKennie stuff, it seems like their media training, their quid pro quo is like, let's tell them as little as possible. Let's find ways to explain things that's very soft and it doesn't require much sort of controversy. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. He would said like, oh, if it was in September, we would have called in Jordan Peacock because he's on form. Bullshit. I don't think that's true.
That's
either.
bullshit.
I mean, the friendly.
It's a lie.
It's just a great way to get out of that question.
It's a lie. Yeah. Absolutely.
So how are you feeling about the roster overall, with all that being said?
I mean, listen, we're only going to play the average team in the last World Cup played 16.5 players. If we only play 16.5 players, I think we're going to be fine. I don't think we're done sniffing this field. Right. I don't, unless an emergency happens. There are some guys on this roster who are not going to see the field. The fact that Shaq Moore is on this team, for instance, is astonishing. But if you bring Tillman or you bring somebody else who actually has a shot to play, what you need with the last 4 or 5, 6 guys on your roster is they're not expecting to play. Yeah. I think that's what Greg probably. You can't say that out loud, right? You can't say, oh, the last 5 guys on the roster, they're not expecting to play. You can't say that, but that's the honest to godness truth. And so this is really about Roldan. I mean, he's just like a circus clown that everybody likes on the roster. And then there are other guys that are, give good reach arounds or whatever they do. I don't
locker room guys.
Yeah,
the locker room guys. Yeah,
they're really good at giving massages or bubble baths. I don't know what they do that's that great, but they're on the team. Long is the only guy, or one of the only guys on this team who just shouldn't be here. Right. Period. End of story. The other guys, okay, I kind of get it because Long's going to play and he should be giving bubble baths, not playing. So
with his mullet, should be cutting everyone's mullet. And as a New York Red Bulls fan, I spent all season because Long was our captain, was one of our best players. All season, I'm just like, what's up with Long?
Who's better, Healis or Long this season?
I mean, I couldn't tell you. I'd say it's maybe a little bit of a tie at best, but especially at the end, he was smoked by Brandon Vasquez, a guy who couldn't get a sniff. The guy who couldn't even get a sniff on the roster. Yep. Brandon Vasquez just smoked that dude. Yep. Yeah, but and
could I provide the idea that Healis was the better center back this season?
Which one? Sean Nealis or Dylan
Nealis? I mean, Nealis.
There's 2 of them. What am I thinking? There's 2. There's Sean Nealis and Dylan Nealis. There's the Nealis.
No, you're confusing the fuck out of me, man. I don't know which
Sean Nealis. You're talking about Sean Nealis,
the guy that regularly started.
Right. Yeah, his little brother Dylan is more of a standby. He comes and flips around. Okay. Yeah, Sean Nealis was pretty solid this season. Aaron Long did not cover himself with glory at all. It is odd that he's on the field.
I'm just thinking if he's not even the best center back on New York Red Bulls, then
he shouldn't be on this team.
What's he doing on this team?
I'm hoping. I'm very glad Tim Ream got involved. I'm hoping for a Ream Zimmerman center back pairing. Yes. I think that's our strong pairing is the Ream Zimmerman. And then I would probably play Carter Vickers over Long too. I think he's probably our weakest of the 4 center backs, definitely.
So here's the thing. We get to the World Cup. We've been talking about playing this high line. Total bullshit. We're not going to play a high line. Best we're going to play is a mid block. Yeah. All right. So all this talk about Brooks was horseshit. All this talk about Ream prior was bullshit. Because Ream's still the same player he was 2 months, 5 months, 6 months ago. Yeah. And so we know that's all bullshit now. It's not necessarily about the fact that we're going to play a high line. And if we're not going to play a high line and we're going to play a mid block or something like, normal for a World Cup, then yeah, Ream and fucking Simmer makes absolutely all the sense in the world. So I don't think that Long is a 100% lock for a starter in this World Cup.
No, and I hope unless so let's move forward to the World Cup, right? And as a US soccer fan, I think to myself, the player quality is good, but our entire campaign has never been convincing. We eked in third place, and some people say we're playing like the third best team in North America because that's how we're playing like sometimes. So we look at a team like a game against Japan where we tried to play that high press thing, and they're like, we figured it out right away, and they just took it and used it against us, and then played with us like a cat with a mouse. Exactly. And if Japan does that, imagine what England's going to do that. So you think to yourself, in order for us to be successful overnight, our team just has to be much better all of a sudden, right? Like our player, like Aaron Long just has to have the game of his life all of a sudden. And Tim Reen has to be 10 years younger all of a sudden. And it's just like all our players, Christian Pulisic has to all of a sudden prove to the English it turns out I can play. It turns out I can dribble. It turns out I can. And Gio, like I just feel there's so much hope. We have to assume they're going to be at their best at all time for us to win, right? That's how I'm feeling. So
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so you look at the paperwork. The paperwork says we're going to get our butts handed to us. That's what the paperwork says.
Here's all I can hope, Stefan, and that is, I thought that Klinsmann was the most stubborn motherfucker that ever lived the earth that coached the U.S. men's national team. Sure. But when he went to the World Cup, and even prior leading up to the World Cup, he changed his mind. He decided, you know what? We're going to play pretty pragmatically, and we're going to be different than we've been. And I think that I'm hoping that's the case with Greg. I hope that Greg has looked at this and said, listen, you know what? Playing a high press against England might bite us in the ass. How about a mid block? How about that instead of a high block? So we'll see what happens. He might go ahead in that first game versus Wales and start out pretty mildly with a mid block. And then as the game develops, move to a high block. I don't know. This is where a lot of this is on Greg's shoulders. Right. It's like if you go out there, balls out, all right, and you're going to be exhausted by the 80th minute, just like Leeds was today after kicking Tottenham in the balls, after kicking Spurs in the balls for 80 minutes and leading the game 3-2. They totally ran out of gas. So you got to measure how much high press, high line are you willing to do in a World Cup, against some of the best players in the world. Not that Wales is, lighting it up, but they're still a pretty decent team. They know how to play as a team. And Iran, I don't care what you think about them. They got some good, solid, quality players on that team.
They got ballers,
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing, Wales has Gareth Bale. If Gareth Bale is at least half healthy or 75% healthy, that's Bale versus Long. That's Bale versus Zimmerman. That's Bale versus Tim Reen. How confident do you feel about that matchup? All they need to do is get in the box.
Yeah. I mean, Bale. Look, Bale came to MLS. He's not a starter, but he did come off the bench and score that goal for LAFC. So there you go. Bale's
on holiday. All right. He is riding the pine. He's cashing his checks. He's playing his golf. When he puts on the Wales shirt and it's World Cup time, you're going to see a Bale you've never seen before.
I don't know what he does. Are there like Wales pills that he takes before he takes the field? Because he looks like shit for LAFC most of the time. So I don't know.
I think he's just hanging out.
He looks like a guy that doesn't give two fucks. But you're right. Maybe it comes World Cup time. He breaks out the bottles of blue pills and chucks
Blue
them
pills.
down. Well, whatever gives you more testosterone, whatever that is, because he doesn't seem to have a lot with Real Madrid in his ending years. And then now he seems like a pretty lame fucking player. Like he could not start for the U.S. men's national team right now. He couldn't. He can't start for LAFC.
But again, what my theory is, when he's just sitting around waiting for Wales, he's going to retire. He's just futzing around. There are world-class players. We've had that. There's been several examples.
Oh, he was a world-class player. Yeah.
Where their World Cup, but they don't want to. They just don't like soccer. They're just not interested anymore. But the contract, like Ronaldinho, the contracts just keep coming. There was also that great Brazilian player. What was his name? He played for Inter Milan or something. He's one of the world's best players. And his dad died, and he stopped caring because his dad forced him to play. Now his dad is dead. He just didn't care, and he would just get these contracts upon contracts upon contracts. Jim Nielsen, when he went to FC Dallas, or Dallas Burn at the time, there's so many examples of players who are world class and they're just collecting paycheck. What's that guy's name? Owen Awatosi in Belgium. Odasowi. He's apparently been AWOL. They're looking for him. You read that? He's just been missing.
Listen,
he left.
This is not surprising. Brett and I have talked about this multiple times from insider reports that we had about Odasowi, which is that this guy is a nutcase. He's a fucking nutcase. It's not about he doesn't care. No. Listen, he started the first game of the season for Bruges.
Right.
Or Bruges, depending on where you're from.
Brugge in German.
Brugge.
Yeah.
Or Bruges or Brugge. Yeah. There's like 4 different pronunciations.
Brussels.
Because you've also got the what's the other language?
Standard Liège.
Belgium.
There's French. Flemish.
Yeah.
And German.
So in German, yes.
Yeah.
And so this guy who went on a modeling career last season, when he went there and didn't get to play, they sent him down to the 2 team. Right. And so he's like, well, I'm just going to go do modeling.
Odasowi did that?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went back to England and did modeling. And now that he is again on the outs at Bruges, he's done. He just got in a fucking plane and flew back to England to do what? I don't know, but he's missing in action. He's MIA. I don't know, but this guy is really out of control. And all these people saying that this guy should have made the World Cup game don't know what they're talking about.
Oh,
don't know what they're talking about. This guy's a head case. He's a fucking head case. Seriously. And I don't like saying that about any player.
Right.
I don't care at this point. I'm 51. Who cares?
It's unfair to compare him to Bale. What I'm saying with Bale is Bale's one of those guys who I think has real talent, but he's over it. However, the one sliver where he still has passion is when he puts on that Wales jersey. And I think we're going to see that in Qatar.
The only thing I would say about that is he's been jacking it off for how many years now, since Real Madrid, where he's not a starter. Right. And then he came to LFC and he's still like, I don't really care that much. How long can you do that before it actually affects your national team play, where you're just not really that fit? You're just not really that informed. Sure, you might pull off a miracle thing, but I don't think Bale's going to be that effective. And I'm looking at the Wales lineup, and I'm not impressed by that lineup.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm just not. There are 3rd division players on that fucking roster. Okay, they're probably not going to play. They're fillers, but we should win that game. In any normal world, we should win that game. But Berhalter I don't know what Berhalter's going to do. I'm really nervous, Stefan, about what he's going to do.
He's the variable that keeps our boys down sometimes.
It makes me nervous. Way, right? Yeah, it does.
Well, I love your optimism for Wales. I hope Bale doesn't show up, and I hope Wales is. They're professionals. They played England, like Championship, League One, the Prem. Some of our guys know them, especially if Tim Ream is back there, and So you're feeling good about the USA Wales games? You're saying?
No. Let me put it this way: Wales starting 11 will be strong.
Right.
And they will put up a fight, and they have a lot of guys with a lot of veteran experience on that team too. And their manager knows how to put them together to play a match as a team. They're like Canada. In a lot of ways, they're like Canada. Like they know how to play versus this opponent or that opponent to get a win or get a result. So I'm still that's why I'm nervous. I'm nervous about that.
They're very pragmatic, and we're wondering if Greg's going to try to beat Pep Guardiola that day or not. So
not.
So I'm feeling good too. I think our points are supposed to be against Wales, and then let's maybe skip England and go to Iran.
Yeah.
The other thing we're betting on is Iran has so much off-field turbulence right now that maybe that'll affect their in locker room culture, but it could go two ways. It could affect them in a we want to get out of here, or it's just disturbed, we don't want to be here. Or it could affect them in a let's prove something today. Let's give the Iranians something to cheer for. Like it could go two ways. And if it goes that second way, that's not great for us because maybe they'll come out and beat us the second time, just like they did in 98.
Yeah, I watched that 98 game. I will say this. Two factors. One, yes, there is always the political and international and all that stuff. I just been told the players don't really care about that much. Honestly.
The Iranian players, you mean?
Yeah, not even the Iranian players care that much about it, and neither do the U.S. players that much. I don't think, first of all, that there should be this much friction. I don't want to get into politics, but anyhow, but at the same time, the reason the new manager was brought in is because the top 2 or 3 Iranian players on the team, some of whom refused to play for the former manager. That's why the new guy was brought in.
Yeah.
And
former New York Red Bulls coach Carlos Queiroz.
Yeah,
although Metro Stars at the time,
who has a great record of not qualifying other teams for the World Cup,
but still being there anyway.
Right, but at the same time, if you are one of the lower rung players in the Iranian team, you're not bitching about that because guess what? You've got no say because the top players wanted this guy. He's there, and so you better suck it up because the top guys are now going to be there for Iran, where they were not before. So the top 2 or 3 guys now are going to show up because this other dude's in there because the other guy had 15 out of 18 wins.
Yeah.
Out of 18 games.
Right.
This guy was not fucking it up. He was doing the best with what he had, but the guys, the superstars, didn't want to play for him. So,
and that's not clues to a great locker room dynamic, right?
It isn't, but I do think the Iranian lower level guys that aren't the superstars are going to have to suck that up. And you're right, that could cause some sort of locker room disturbance. I will say that it's possible that could happen, not on a France level, but on a minor Iranian level.
We're vote. So right now we're betting on that the Iranian locker room isn't great and that Bale is not the amazing player he should be. So those are our 2 bets. Those are 2 prop bets right now.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, let's
still do our Nervous City. Yeah.
Let's do our 3rd prop bet. Right. Maybe England will implode. You know?
I mean, it's possible.
In England, he has to play tight and a counter, right? He can't play them any other way. How else is he going to play England? He has to play tight and a counter, the way you always play in England. You got to do that pragmatic. Do you think, or do you think he's going to go at him? He's going to try to pull some stuff.
No, I just think he's going to do what he's been doing.
Right.
He and Greg sleep together at hotels tonight when they're in the same city.
Gareth and Greg, double G.
That's a joke.
He's the 4th G to the triple G. Is that what you're saying?
It is, but they are good friends and they manage very similar. Right. I'm not a big fan of Gareth. And as much as I'm not a big fan of Greg, I can deal with what they do. And I know that Gareth has had success doing what he's done in tournaments in the past. But when I look at what England's done in the last year, I think, whoa, that's pretty ugly shit. And the fact that he's sticking with some players that I don't think really are going to be like, all right, Phillips. Has the fact that Phillips left Leeds really been a big hole for Leeds? No.
Tyler Adams
absolutely
filled that
not.
hole. Yeah.
Does Phillips actually play for Man City? No. But he's got, like Greg, he's got some guys, a few guys that like he just can't fucking let go of.
Right.
And England's got some big issues with the way, not only the way they set up in a very predictable manner, just like we do,
right.
But they also have some players like Harry Maguire and even Stones at times that have these moments of just, you're like, did they take stupid pills? You just don't know what's going to happen back there. I think this game with England is going to be an all out fucking crazy shit setup. I think it's going to be insane. It's going to be back and forth. It's going to be fucking crazy.
Amazing.
I think that's what's going to happen that game. I think that the fact that they're friends, they're close friends, Gareth and Greg, I think they're just going to be doing some weird shit to each other. And I think it's going to be so back and forth. It's going to be like, I think we're going to sit back and counter. I think they're going to think they can play a mid and still control the game. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to make a lot of mistakes. I think they're going to be nervous. I think the back line's going to make mistakes. This is going to be a really interesting game. I don't know, but I think I'm predicting a 1-1 on that game. I really am.
A 1-1. Okay,
a 1-1.
It's a perfect segue into our last segment here. I want to talk predictions. I also predicted England-USA tie. We hope a victory would be amazing. A record against them are great. We beat them once and we tied once. And it'd be nice if we held that undefeated record and love a good 1-1 tie. In my mind, I'm thinking 2-2 for some reason. I don't know why. I think maybe Christian Pulisic's going to try to get a goal. And
yeah, I would go with that too. But all I'm going to say to the English team is our players are not intimidated by the English national team.
No,
at all.
Tyler Adams on that field, Wes McKennie on that field.
Yeah.
Pulisic definitely has a prove, like he has a little chip on his shoulder. He's got a point to prove. And the other guys just don't know or care. Like Serginho Dest doesn't care about England, No, I love Sargent. He's got a point to prove.
He knows all those players.
yeah. He sits on the bench and watches them play last year or whatever.
right, exactly.
And Tim Ream, who's crushing it this year. I'm loving it. And Matt Turner, who's going to show Aaron Ramsdale that maybe he's the better goalkeeper on the Arsenal book. Maybe this is just my pride pro USA.
I think you might be right, by the way.
Yeah, maybe. Aaron Ramsdale is sitting on the bench watching his second choice block all his points. But that's just me dreaming. So we have an England tie. How are we feeling about Wales? What's your prediction for Wales?
It's the first game, and that makes me nervous. I think we're going to come out nervous. I think we're going to play nervous for the first half. I think we might go down 1-0, and I think it might end up as a tie 1-1. Worst case scenario, but I think best case scenario, we come back in the second half and win it 2-1. But I do think we're going to be super nervous and super young, and they're going to be super old and super fucking like cool. They're going to be Fonzie, and we're going to be like Richie Cunningham in the first fucking half. That's a Happy Days reference for those out there wondering.
And then his older brother who walked off in the first episode and never came back again or whatever.
That was weird. He never got mentioned again. Yeah.
Deep cat. He's Iran. He's that older brother we never saw.
I guess so.
So you're thinking a 2-1 is what you're saying? Is that what you're landing on? You're landing on a 1-1.
I think we're gonna win it 2-1, but 2-1. I think it's gonna be we're gonna go into the halftime 0-1. I think we're gonna be down. I think Gareth Bale or somebody's going to do something fucking amazing, or something weird shit's going to happen because we're all nervous and we're passing it in the back, and and then I think Greg says at halftime because it's going to take him till halftime to figure it out.
Right.
You know what we're doing right now ain't working.
Right.
So let's change this shit up and let's move to a 4-2-3-1. This is annoying for me, by the way, Stefan, that all these I heard Matthew Doyle in an interview today say, yeah, I think we could play a 4-2-3. I'm like, when's the last time we played a 4-2-3-1?
I know, a million years ago.
Ever, as the actual foundational fucking formation. We don't do that. We only do it when we're like, okay, yeah. Adams is under a lot of pressure. So can Musa come back and help?
Right.
That's not a 4-2-3-1. That is still a 4-3-3, 4-3-3 with a guy coming back to help.
Yeah.
It blows my, it's like when people say we play a 10. And I'm like, what are you fucking talking about?
Who's the 10?
Sorry.
Yeah. No,
I'm swearing now.
It doesn't matter. We swear all the time. But like 4-3-3, they just landed on it because it worked once and they stuck to it. But to be honest with you, it leaves us wide open a lot, and it leaves our attacking movement left to be desired. We hold back, and then we give Christian Pulisic the ball, and we're like, "You do it. Go run. Do the whole second half." Then when he's on the bench, Gio comes on, and then he does it. But go, Gio. Go. You do it yourself. It just feels like our players are on an island more times than not, and I don't get why that's the case. It should be, especially with the whole system that has. There should be 1+ guys in every corner or whatever it is he's doing. The whole Dutch, essentially, he's doing total football pretty much. Right. So like, but like all these guys running around.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But they're nowhere to be found. I don't see them. I see Christian Pulisic by himself, and I see Gio by himself. I'm like, where are the other boys? It's just we're spread too thin sometimes.
And the other thing you see is like 4 guys sometimes taking up one clog left. You got. On the left, you've got Robinson, Pulisic, you've got Adams, and then you've got McKennie, all jammed up in like a 10-yard box.
Yeah, no one's in the box. No one's in the attacking box.
Right.
So you can't really cross it to anybody.
Is this the system? Am I missing something?
It is the system. It's what we've seen. That's the system I see. Call me crazy, but I see things and they look the way they look.
Oh, Greg made such a horrible mistake making this all about his fucking system. I mean, when you have all the players talking about it and then Greg's talking about it, and you're like, this is the last month leading up to this. It's like, shut the fuck up.
I know. Let the players play, would you? Yeah.
All right. I guess, if this doesn't all work out, Greg, then it's just going to be about your system because that's what you made it about the whole time. Your players are talking about it. You're talking about the system. So I guess if we fail, it's all on you, Greg.
It's the hill he's dying on. He's choosing it. And last but not least, Iran. You think that's where we're going to get our 3 points, Iran?
Wouldn't count on it, but we should at least get one. We should get one.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking score-wise with Iran? Iran.
2-1.
So let's say it again. 2-1.
Iran so far away.
I scored on Iran.
Is that the song that they sing?
They should. The U.S. fans should say that.
Right.
On the
I'm thinking 2-1. We 2-1. Win that. Yeah.
So we got a 2-1, a 1-1, and a 2-1.
I think so. I think, and this is really wishful thinking.
It is
for me. Because if I were really honest with you, Stefan, and I'm going to be right now, there's a really good chance. I'd give it about a 40% chance that we lose every single game in this fucking group.
I feel exactly the same way.
35%. I'm going to nail down the number. 35% chance we lose every single game in this group.
Well, that's what I was saying before.
I don't even want to say it, but I'm being honest.
No, I have to say it out loud too. Granted, that's maybe just fear talking, but as a fan, from what you've seen, it's one of those things where it's like we're hoping everyone's at their best to get these results that you're talking about. Everyone has to be at their best to get those results, and it's like, what are the likelihood they're all going to be at their best? So, we've had 3-game windows before. We've always assumed to be 7 to 9 points. It usually ends up with 5 points, right? Usually a tie, and a win. That seemed to have been sort of the pattern. So I think a tie against Wales, a tie against England, and a win against Iran, 5 points should hopefully get us out of the group. Yeah. And I think that's a very realistic scenario because I think it is. You know,
And, I was wrong in many ways with Klinsmann going into his World
right.
Cup. And I didn't think they were going to get out of that group. Honestly, I
Who
don't think
predicted that? Who predicted
I
that? I mean,
I
that's
think
crazy.
Brett and I actually had them getting out of the group in second because we were homers, but on big soccer. But at the
Right.
same time, we were atrociously offended by Landon Donovan's absence. And so, we were pissed. And we'll see what happens here. Maybe all of our angst, our collective angst about Greg, maybe he's been setting us up for this. Maybe he
Right.
does have a plan for the World Cup that's very specific for how the World Cup works. Like maybe he's called Bruce Arena. Maybe he's called Jurgen. Maybe he's called fucking Bob Bradley and said, listen, here are all my dreamy fucking Disneyland ideas going into this, but as I'm headed to this, can you give me a real clue as to what
Right.
I'm really dealing with? Oh, I should only play about 15, 16 players? Oh, okay. So stick to my core group the whole way through. Don't fuck around that much.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's a good idea. I hope that's what he's learning, Stefan. I really do. I hope he's just not going to be one of those dumbass managers that plays like 25, 23 players.
Yeah.
And, we're just
Only if we go deep enough. Maybe if we're in that third place match, maybe then you can play your bench a little bit. Only if you're that deep.
if
I would
we
say.
get to the third place, that'll be fucking.
Yeah,
I mean,
love
fireworks will shoot out of my asshole. All
Me
right,
too, buddy.
So
Me too, buddy. So, like I said, with that, the way he released the roster with his Haji Wright and all that stuff, it's sort of like, you can't guess, try to guess me. Maybe we can assume that kind of mentality is going to move its way to the World Cup. It's just going to pull his bonkers ass simple tactics that no Matt Doyle, no one predicted that, because that's how Greg operates. That's how Greg operates. Yeah, armchair analyze that. Armchair analyze a 4-4-2. How about that? Just throw that out there.
Can I just say this about Matt Doyle? I met Matt Doyle in 2011. And we did a little shindig with his buddy Jonah Friedman. And I like Matt Doyle. I think he's a really nice guy. He ain't the same guy from 2011. Matt Doyle is a little bit full of himself compared to the guy I met in 2011. I still like him. I still think he's probably a really good person. But boy, sometimes I'm like, so much.
Is this a phone call I'm going to get? Am I going to have to maybe remove this from the thing a day later or whatever?
You know what? Listen, here's the thing, Stefan. I have long given up caring. I don't care. Like if Matt has a problem, he knows how to get a hold of me with something I said. So I don't worry about it. I said worse on Brett and I's show. Worse about Matt. And then I've said very nice things about Matt. I've defended Matt. So if Matt wants to come at me, Matt can come at me. But Matt doesn't think of me anything about that. Oh, you have that fucker that used to have a show back in big soccer. That shit was canceled. Right. It's like, no, we ended the show. It wasn't canceled. But okay. All right. It is what it is.
Well, he has a very thankless job. I don't have anything against him. He watches 1,000 hours of soccer and has to write an analyst about it.
Dude, it's a tough job. Yeah,
I don't want to do that job. I'll tell you that.
It really is. Like his whole fucking life. And back then it wasn't actually. I mean, it was part of his life. But Matt Doyle's become like the featured writer. And back then when we met him, he was like, I don't know if he's an intern or he was just getting started, but he was there with Jonah Freeman in the hotel. And we did an interview on the launching of Indy 11. And he was just a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And, he's I say this about a lot of people that people hate, it's like, they're not really that horrible of people. Who's the bald guy?
Simon Borg. No, I was going to say him.
No,
that bald guy.
No, not Simon Borg.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. What's his name?
I can't remember his name all of a sudden.
Is it Andrew Wiebe? Is he the bald one? No, he's the one.
No, not on ESPN. As far as like major soccer coverage.
John Strong. There's a lot of bald guys.
You're right.
There's a lot of bald guys.
Impossible to nail down. The point is that there are a lot of people that think that people are crap people just because they don't like their coverage. And I get it. They're not all crap people, but they do want to have a job. And so they do what they do because they got to have a job. You got to understand that.
That's a whole nother thing.
That doesn't,
American soccer media, that we can talk about that forever. That's a whole nother thing.
That doesn't forgive them.
Right.
Okay. For their lack of coverage. It just is a fact. Right. It's a fact. I know it. I did U.S. journalism in soccer. I was threatened. I was warned many times. So I understand the pressures they're under. Yeah. Doesn't forgive it, but
Yeah, that's a big topic and a good topic, and definitely maybe something we could dissect some other time, because that's also a main criticism. And I watch foreign journalism all the time. I watch a lot of German media. And, like the minute someone's fired, a bunch of vets just put you in a room and they're like, what the heck did you just do? Like, what did you explain yourself, moron? Like, this is what German media is like. It's the exact opposite of what U.S. media is like.
Right.
They're just burnt. Everything's bad. Everything was done wrong. They're just burning you. Columns are written about how stupid the coach is, how stupid the thing is. That's all mainstream German soccer media. England, you get that stuff too. Here in the U.S., we're not really in that world as far as soccer media goes. But that's a whole nother discussion for another time.
It is, but it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a very good one. I don't want to. You and I are independent media, getting out there, being free, saying our soul. Derek, thanks so much for joining us here on the pod and talking the World Cup. So we essentially summarized the cultural milieu of what the fans are going through. We like our heads are saying this could be 3 and out, but our hearts are saying, come on, boys, you can do it. Get that win against Wales. Get that win against Iran. Get out of the group. The quality is there. We know it's there. So excellent. Thank you very much.
And you never overpromise. That's never overpromise. Yes.
You got any plugs? Do you want to do any plugs? You got your podcast on Thursday nights, and
come check us out at the Straight Red Card on YouTube. I have a new album out.
Yeah,
check it. You can check that out on Bandcamp. It's Brando. The album is Under Arsenals. What else are we doing? We're gonna be covering the fucking World Cup the whole time. So definitely join us at the Straight Red Card. And make sure you keep watching these guys too. And hey, it's been fun, Stefan. It's been fun.
It's been fun having you. Thanks again, bub. Give my best to Brett. Cool. That was just the Schnitzel Boys video on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. If you like that one, we've got a couple other ones right over here. And if you like that one, don't be afraid to subscribe, like.
It's the Schnitzel Boys. It's the Schnitzel Boys. It's the Schnitzel Boys.